Life has a goal and a destination. And there is a truth. The truth is, none has the right to be worshipped except Allah alone. And so as part of that, Allah Azza wa Jal has obviously sent us guidance. But the other view is that there's no meaning, and there's no purpose, and there's no direction. So each person on his own, he has to sit and think and work out his own meaning, to devise his own meaning, right? So we said that in one where life does have a meaning, life does have purpose, you have a very optimistic outlook. You have optimism. Optimism means that you are positive, and you have a positive outlook, and you have good thoughts, you have good anticipations, you anticipate reward in the hereafter. You know that your deeds are not in vain, right? And so you're optimistic because you have something to look forward to. Life has a meaning. Life has a direction. On the other hand, when you look at like atheism, naturalism, and there's no meaning, there's no purpose, and these philosophies, they exist. There's nihilism, there's existentialism. These are philosophies that men think of to try and make sense of life without guidance from Allah, without revelation from Allah. And so they try to make sense of life, and they come out with different ideas. And really these ideas are just their own personal experiences that they've had in their life, right? And it shapes the way they think, and it shapes the way that they think the world should be. And so they come up with these ideas, but ultimately there's no meaning, there's no purpose, there's no direction, and you have to invent your own purpose, your own direction, right? The only truth is the truth, is whatever is truth to you in your mind. And so these people, they have a very pessimistic outlook. Pessimistic means it's very negative and very speculative, and you're always looking at the most negative thing. Now, we mentioned some quotes from some of these atheists, from Richard Dawkins, from other people, to show that when they propound these ideas, and this idea that life is completely meaningless, purposeless, there's no direction, then it really it just undermines everything, and really there's nothing really to live for in reality. So then they find ways to enjoy themselves and to find pleasure and to exhaust all these things in life. And then once they've been through all of that, and then they realize that there's no satisfaction, there's no happiness, there's no serenity in these things, then they realize how utterly negative and bleak life is. And they come to this realization. And so that's why they then, I mentioned about like suicide and things of that nature. Anyway, that was the first point that we mentioned in the previous lesson. The second point that we mentioned was that when it comes to deeds, when it comes to actions, actions have properties, right? Just like things have properties, right? Wood is hard, water is soft, it's a liquid, it's fluid, right? There are things which have all sorts of properties. In the same way, the deeds, actions have properties. They have attributes, right? Lying has a property. Lying has a property which makes it evil, right? Being truthful, speaking the truth, has a property, has properties, has qualities which make it beneficial, beneficial. And the same applies to so many other things. Justice, to be just, this has certain qualities and properties which make it rectifying and which make it good and beneficial. And oppression, right, is wrong, it's evil, it's harmful, it has certain properties, right? So in what Allah has created, in the things, in the beings that Allah has created, right? Angels are created from light. Men are created from the dust of the earth. Jinn are created from the smokeless part of the fire. Everything, whether physical, it has properties and qualities, And similarly, the actions, the behaviors, right? They also have properties. And it's for that reason that in the guidance that Allah Azza wa Jal sent in His books, then things are either commanded or things are prohibited. Those things which are prohibited, it is because they are evil, they are harmful, right? Their properties are such that they are harmful, they cause corruption in society, right? The things which are prohibited. So we are prohibited committing shirk with Allah, because that's an intellectual deviation. We are prohibited from oppression like murder and harming somebody and taking his wealth or injuring him or things of that nature. That's oppression, right? We are prohibited from fornication and adultery, because these are corruptions and harms and evils in society. You are prohibited from alcohol and intoxicants, because they befog the mind, right? And people do things which are harmful as a result of that. Conversely, we are ordered to worship Allah alone. We are ordered to be truthful. We are ordered to be obedient to parents, righteous to parents, and so on and so on and so forth, right? These are deeds which are enjoined or which are prohibited because they either have a rectifying influence or they have a corrupting influence. And Allah Azza wa Jal put in every soul a basic, the fitrah, and there are some things that we know, that we can know that they are wrong. We know lying is wrong instinctively. We know it's wrong, right? And we know injustice is wrong, right? There are certain things that we know, but there are some things for which we need guidance from Allah Azza wa Jal, right? Because one person with his intuition and even with his intellect, he cannot figure out all of these realities and these truths. So therefore we need guidance from Allah Azza wa Jal, which agrees with reason, it agrees with the fitrah. It actually comes to perfect the fitrah, as Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah mentioned, that the revelation and the messengers, they were sent in order to perfect the fitrah, right? The natural original disposition. So because of this, we know that we have guidance. Unlike the people of philosophy, the naturalists, the atheists, because they are left to their own devices, they are left to their own intellects to dream up and to think up and to invent whatever they think, right? But we have guidance from Allah Azza wa Jal, which liberates us and frees us, right? We are liberated by way of this guidance. It's not like what they say, that you are in chains, you are in shackles, you can't do this because this is haram, that's haram, that's haram, you have to do. No. We are liberated by this guidance, whereas you people, you are lost in misguidance, right? You're lost in this misguidance. That was the second point that we mentioned, and the third point is that the righteous deeds, therefore, that we are discussing in this lecture, the righteous deeds, the virtuous deeds, these are deeds that we do which are worship of Allah. By it we remind ourselves, it's remembrance, it's dhikr, it's prayer, it's voluntary fasting, it's charity, it's these types of things which bring benefit to ourselves. First of all, it has a rectifying effect on our souls, and also it rectifies the society, it minimizes evil, it brings happiness, and so on and so forth. So we mentioned those points, and then the Shaykh, Hafidhahullah, mentions verses from the Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullah wal tanzur nafsun ma qaddamat lighad. O you who believe, fear Allah, and let each soul look at what it has prepared for tomorrow, what it has sent forth for tomorrow. And likewise, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tulhikum amwalukum wala awladukum an dhikrillah. O you who believe, do not let your wealth or your offspring to divert you from the remembrance of Allah. The Shaykh mentioned these two verses, and he mentioned some benefits from these verses. From them, is that whenever we hear in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, whenever we hear this, O you who believe, then you should pay careful attention. Because either it is a command that's going to benefit you, or it's going to be a prohibition that's going to keep you away from harm or from evil. Likewise, the Shaykh mentioned how the way of the companions was to very quickly respond. That when they hear this in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, they're very, very quick to respond, because they know that whether it's a command or it's a prohibition, that this is something that is going to obviously benefit them in this life and the next. The Shaykh also mentioned that these verses, there are 2 points that he basically mentioned. First of all, that they encourage a person to prepare for the hereafter, and they encourage a person to strive against his soul to prepare for the hereafter. And secondly, that a person should make good use of his life and his time in what will bring him actual benefit in this life and in the hereafter. And so today's lesson then, so this was just a recap of what we discussed in the previous lesson.